Hey, this is Barath Surendran, and welcome to this video podcast. In this, what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to actually talk about is a topic called the game of greed and game of generosity. What do I mean by game of greed and game of generosity? Now, when I say game of greed, before I get into it, I would actually like to tell you a story. Let's say in a village there are two people who live. Let's just call them Mahesh and Dinesh. And Mahesh is a generous person. He goes into a job and he starts bribing and starts making money. But then he helps a lot of people. But as Dinesh, who is actually a straightforward individual, but then he doesn't help much of people because he has been very careful that he never wanted to actually make anything, anything wrong. But then what exactly happens is eventually Mahesh actually becomes wealthier, Dinesh becomes very mediocre. Now, even though maybe actually you can say that corruption is actually corruption. But then what exactly happens is one guy gets benefit just because he is generous, even though if he is corrupt. So it is very important to understand that being generous actually helps even a corrupt guy. So game of generosity, when I say even a corrupt guy being generous actually helps him. Now, let me come back to the most important thing. But this example was not a right example. But then I wanted to convey that principles always always principles. And you should understand one thing that a game of greed. What exactly happens is people when they want what they want is they want money. All they want is money. Somehow they want to make money, and because of that, they get into they get into debt. They want to buy bigger gadgets. They want to buy a bigger car. They want to actually feel successful on the outside, and they of course they get into the rat race where they want to earn money and make sure that make sure that they spend it on all these gadgets and doodads. And what exactly happens is even if they look outside somewhat successful, internally they are not, and they get into EMIs and the loans, and because of the EMIs they become even more greedy, and because they become more greedy, and the negative cycle keeps going around and around, and eventually their greed makes them poor and poor. Whereas if you are, let's say, playing the game of generosity, what exactly happens? You don't want to make money, you don't want to really show off and then just look rich on the outside. What exactly you want is you want to make sure that you want to help enough people out so that you would be happy, successful, and you would be feeling good about yourself. And what exactly happens is this is a game which is played. When you play it, what exactly happens is you don't actually get into debt, you don't get into EMIs, and because of that, you generate true value for others, and in turn, you develop true wealth, and the money gets into the right pockets, money gets into the right people, and eventually you become successful, not just in terms of the outside having a bigger car or a bigger gadget and so on, but internally as a person you will become successful. And this game you call the game of generosity because you have helped enough people out. Of course, ethics is so important. It's not about being corrupt, right? You should not be corrupt, of course, but you have to be ethical. You have to be right, but then you have to play the game also called the generosity. So that's the difference between this game of greed and game of generosity. But sadly, people get into the game of greed because there is no other way. They have been pushed because of social factors, because of economic factors, because of various factors, that they have to play the game of the rat race. and they are into the rat race. And once they are into the rat race, once they are committed to that, and they have lots of course, the liabilities, and they are unable to come out of it. In fact, playing a game of generosity is a very, very long term, and it is a very daunting, and you have to have lot of patience and self sacrifice that has to happen in order to really become successful. And if you have to think about a long term, then commit yourself for the game of generosity. So this is the one which I want to convey, and thank you for listening. And please do share this video, comment this video. Thank you very much, and see you on the video. See you. Bye. Thumbs up.